advanced to Sweet 16. The Florida Norfolk State game, the Gators go up quickly in this game. It's like 42-17. We just come out on fire. Walter Clayton's hitting ridiculous 4-point plays. Elijah Martin's hitting shots. Everyone's really clicking to start this game. But then we kind of just let off the gas, and Norfolk State went an 11-0 run to end the first half. And then the second half is just sporadic. We end up winning it by 5, 42-37. Not really ideal, but it's also like, I mean, nobody played over 30 minutes in that first game against Norfolk State. So you get your guys rested. They get some nice stats, like Walter Clayton has 23 and Elijah Martin was 17. So they have some pretty good statistical games. But you probably would have liked to win this one by more based on how you started. But I don't think you could have read too much into it before this UConn game.
Yeah. No, I mean, I will say I kind of nailed my score prediction on this one. I said 90-65. It ended up being 95-69. So pretty close.
That's really close. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, honestly, I mean, yeah, you had that stretch at the end of the half. You weren't playing great. I mean, certainly wasn't a complete 40-minute performance that you want to see. And Todd Golden was upset about that fact. But like, for me as a fan, like, I got what I wanted to see out of this game. I wanted this to be a game that was not particularly scary at halftime. You know, this game felt pretty much out of hand within the opening minutes. And even when I mean, how close did they ever cut it? Did they ever cut it within like
19?
19, yeah, 19.
I think
so.
Maybe 18.
Yeah, so it was never like, even when, you know, Florida had a stretch where it wasn't playing great, this game was never really in doubt at any point, which, you know, Auburn can't say the same about their 16 seed game. You know, that game was a little tighter than it should have been throughout. So yeah, I mean, like, you know, those games, sometimes you win those by 40, sometimes you win them by 20. I think Florida ultimately got, like, I agree. I don't think there was anything negative or positive you could really read from that game going into the UConn game. It was just like, took care of business.
Yeah, I think the main problem was that the fact that we got up by 32 points or 33, whatever it was, before we let Norfolk State go on the run. And then, I mean, we scored 42 in the second half. I felt like we couldn't stop them. Like, they were driving in. They were hitting some really tough shots. I mean, for a Norfolk State team, they were really good at making their baskets around the rim. So I'll give them credit for that. But, man, it just felt like the defense wasn't there. I mean, they only score 69. You don't even give up 70 points. So it's something you can't really complain about. But it really felt like you should have won this game like 100-40 or 150. And you end up only winning it by, 26 points. So it got to a point where it kind of felt lackluster. But at that point, you couldn't really complain because, again, it was a 1 versus 16 matchup where you cruised.
Yeah, 100%.
However, I do think going into the UConn game, you can kind of see some of those things come into fruition, where some of this bad shooting that we saw at the end of the Norfolk State game felt like we were missing a lot of open shots. It really happened again against UConn. We got up 6-0, and so it's like, oh, we're hot. We're just going to go and roll UConn. And then it's like 6-2, and it's like 10-5 going into the 16 timeout. It really felt like we should have been up by like 10, 15 points. We had a lot of dumb turnovers, just lazy turnovers from Walt, some bad passes, missed some open shots, some open layups as well. Like, it felt like we were in control, but it was only a 5-point difference, which we would see later on in the game wasn't that much of a difference.
Yeah, this one kind of had bad vibes from the jump, to be honest with you. Like, it kind of just felt like Florida didn't really, even early in the game, because they controlled, like you said, they controlled for most of the first half. You know, they were up 3 before UConn hit that you know, long shot to tie it right before the half. I do think, though, like, you know, there were, like you said, there were turnovers, there were missed shots. There was, you know, I thought that, you know, frankly, like, I want to give credit to UConn and Dan Hurley, because I think that they had a really good game plan for this. And
Absolutely.
They executed it well. I mean, they put ball pressure on Florida, the likes of which the Gators haven't really seen, at least in a while. And so, you know, I think, frankly, I don't know if Florida has the ball handlers to handle that. They got better throughout the game, but I mean, I think you saw the effects that had. It really, the stuff that they were running on offense was working better. And frankly, Florida was just fortunate they were missing shots. UConn only shot, I mean, like 32% in the first half or something like that. They were pretty inefficient, missed a lot, jacking up threes that they were honestly pretty decent looks, and they were missing them.
Jackson Johnson, congrats on the win against UConn. Thanks. Your Crimson Tide up 13 at the half on St. Mary's. Looking good for y'all to make the Sweet 16. Yeah, it felt like we did give up some good looks in that first half. I also felt like we also missed some good looks of our own and like lackadaisical turnovers. Like stuff that UConn, they actually really didn't take advantage of well. Because they had very little points off turnovers compared to the amount they had. They had like 10 turnovers and 0 points off turnovers in that first half. So they didn't really take advantage of them, but they at least got those turnovers, which, I mean, you don't score, but you prevent Florida from scoring. That's 10 possessions there, where Florida's probably scoring on 3, 4, 5 maybe of them. That could add up to a whole lot of points there. So they took advantage of that from that perspective. But I mean, even in the second half, we felt like we were just kind of gliding through it, cruising through it. Like, it felt like a game where they thought they were up by 20, but they're really trailing in that second half by 5 points for most of that second half, 5+ points in that range for most of that second half until we did take control in the final couple minutes.
Yeah, I mean, truthfully, like I spent most of this game feeling like it was a loss. I was mentally preparing for the season. I mean, because they were doing all the things that you got to do to beat this team. They were forcing turnovers for a while there. They were they were really putting in the work on the offensive glass.
They had
a lot of second chance opportunities that, again, they just couldn't capitalize on, both the second chance opportunities and the turnovers. They just weren't shooting it very well on the other end. But I felt, especially when they came out of the half and kind of started hitting some shots and stretched that lead out a little bit, because I was like, I mean, the only reason Florida's even in this game right now, frankly, is because they're missing shots. And I was afraid if that changed, that we would see the game change. And it did for a little bit there. I just think they responded really nicely. I mean, obviously, guys like Martin and obviously Clayton hit some really clutch shots there at the end. Free throws weren't good. I mean, again, it kind of just felt like the perfect storm coming together to end Florida's season. Like, they were abysmal shooting free throws in the second half. Made a couple when it really mattered down at the very end, but some real missed opportunities. And it just was, I don't know, nothing was really going right. Wasting possessions where they had opportunities to take the lead or at least cut into it. And it just turned around. The defense was lights out. I mean, held them without making a field goal for a 5-minute stretch there from like 7 minutes left to 2 minutes left.
Yep.
And, the offense finally picked it back up on the other end and gave you just enough. I mean, it was certainly a UConn battle to the very end, even when it kind of looked like it was over, when Florida had like a 6-point lead.
Yeah, I think something we saw in this game that we haven't really seen much of throughout the season is UConn's length in their guards. I mean, Hassan Diarra is only 6'2", but he's a pretty lengthy guy. He got a lot of not a lot, but like he got a couple offensive rebounds, got some points in the paint. Liam McNeely, 6'7". He's having to be guarded by like a Will Richard. He has to be guarded by Will Richard because Elijah Martin's only 6'2". So they had some trouble with their size. And it's not like most teams where they have their size and their bigs like we do, where we have a 7'2". 7'1" Mikey Hanglon, 6'11" Condon, 6'10" Chinyelu. So like we're used to teams having size inside that we're bigger than, not having size on the outside that can really bother those guards defensively, which really was a big story of the first 35 minutes of that game. Now, one thing I keep seeing people saying is that UConn kind of dominated this game for like 35 minutes. Florida led for 18 minutes of that first half. So UConn didn't really dominate us in the first half. Like, we led for a majority. I mean, we probably led all together for 20 plus minutes of a 40-minute game. Like, we did our fair share of winning in that game. This wasn't a game where UConn dominated from tip to the last 5 minutes and Florida kind of just took over and got lucky. It was a close first half game where Florida had the edge in the first half, then UConn had the edge for most of the second half, but Florida was able to close it out because Walter Clayton Jr. is the best player in the country, or one of the best players in the country.
Yeah.
And he hits 2 clutch threes in the final 3 minutes of that game. Will Richard also hit a clutch 3. You mentioned it, where we held him scoreless for like 5 minutes. We brought it within 1 point, and then Solo Ball hits a crazy 3 to bring it back within 4, or bring it back to a 4-point lead. We go down the other end. It looks like it's going to be a turnover. Will Richard grabs it and just chucks up a 3, drains it to bring it back within 1. So, I mean, I don't think UConn really was as dominant as people think. They were pretty dominant for the 15 minutes in the first half. But, like, outside of that, it was a close game that really Florida had the upper hand in.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, a couple moments that really stand out to me from the second half. I think that, I mean, first of all, the turning point in the game was that, that moment where it was a 2-point game and Clayton just drills the NBA 3 with a guy in his face, give him a 1-point lead, and then force a quick, Will Richard really heads up play. Will Richard knocks the ball out,
in my opinion.
Yeah, because Richard knocks the ball out on the other end, and then Condon gets the board, tosses it to Richard, who heads up play, is already going back down the other side, and a huge dunk there to give Florida a 3-point lead. And that was really the turning point. I mean, I think UConn tied it again after that, but it was from that point on, it was Florida controlling the game and UConn playing catch up, and it really reversed the trend for most of the first half. I would also like to give a shout out to Elijah Martin. Obviously, in addition to, I mean, he kind of like borderline saved the season. I mean, had some nice free throws, 18 points total. But how about the two plays where I think only one of them actually counted as a rebound, but the 2 plays off the missed free throw, the one where he knocks the ball out after the missed free throw and he gets rebounded on the outside by like Hauk or something. And then the other one where he rebounds it himself, goes in and gets the easy layup. Like, 2 what would have been wasted possessions that he salvaged there. I mean, in a game where every point mattered. Like, the line on this one between Florida going home and going to the Sweet 16, it was pretty thin, but it was plays like that really proved to be the difference.
Yeah, I mean, you said you think the turning point was when we got the Clayton 3, and then Will Richard slammed to increase the lead to 3 points. I think it was about 10 minutes left in the game, and no one was doing good on offense. I think they got their largest lead of the night. UConn did by like 8 points. But then Will Richard starts cooking. He hits a 3. He gets to the line. He makes a layup. And that's a difference of us possibly being down 10 plus points going into that final like 5-minute stretch of the game, and us only being down by 5. I think that deserves a lot of credit for Will Richard. He obviously then hits the 3 to bring it back within 1. So I feel like the 3 guards really all had their start points, where Elijah Martin was the guy at the start of the game where he was the only one who could score for us. And then Will Richard in that like last 10 minutes where he took a big role to keep us within distance. And then Walter Clayton to close it out and give us the lead that UConn wouldn't be able to recover from.
Yeah, it was kind of a nice turnaround for Will Richard, sort of even within the game, because he was kind of a liability in the first half. Like,
if you include
the taking bad
State
shots.
Game. Oh, yep.
Yeah. Sorry, he was bad in the Norfolk State game too.
He was 1 for 8 from the field going into the second half against UConn.
Yeah.
Including the Norfolk State game where the one was an open 3 with like 5 minutes left against Norfolk State. So Richard had a really bad game against them, a really bad first half against UConn. So, I mean, go ahead. Sorry.
No, that was really all I was going to say. I was, between that, you had 3 turnovers in this game too. Just a couple really ugly mistakes that were really costly for Will Richard. And then, he just proved to be as impactful down the stretches as anyone was. And Walt did the same. Walt had some really bad misses early in this game.
Well,
I don't know. I've seen people say like the balls are overinflated or something. I don't know, but like they were missing. I mean, they were bricking shots like off the front of the rim. Like they weren't even close. Like it was very bizarre.
Yeah. So, I mean, you were talking early on about how UConn was missing shots. I think Walt started like 1 of 5 in this game.
Yeah.
1 of 4. Like our best player, the best player on the court, had like 3 turnovers and like 1 of 5 in the first 10 minutes of this game. Like, I mean, we got lucky. They missed some shots, but UConn, now give credit to their defense, saying you can give credit to ours. what was I about to say? Yeah, I mean, give credit to them. But Walt was also just missing some stuff. I think he went from the field, not including threes, 1 of 6 from 2.
Mm-hmm.
And that one was like a turnaround jumper he made in that last like 5-minute stretch of the game.
Yeah.
So he was like 0 of 5 from 2. He had a horrible missed layup where it was a wide open layup. He got past the defender with a nice move and just whiffs the layup somehow. So, I mean, we got lucky a little bit. They did. I mean, you can say most deserving team. I think it was us because we ended up winning. I mean, we made the clutch plays that UConn didn't make.
Yeah, I mean, well, again, it's like UConn had every opportunity to pull away in this game. I mean, frankly, like I think Florida was very lucky that this was even a tie game at halftime. Like that's kind of how I look at it. So, I mean, to me, like UConn missed the opportunities to capitalize when Florida was really struggling offensively. They were missing shots of their own, and Florida gave them the ball. I mean, they gave them the game. They they doubled them up in turnovers. We're getting Florida ended up winning the rebounding battle here. I think there was a time where that wasn't the case, but I mean, again, they were getting just straight up bullied on the offensive boards, which is very bizarre for this Florida team with the size and skill that they have. So kind of, I mean, UConn, I mean, it's got to be a really frustrating game for UConn because everything they tried to do worked. They just couldn't capitalize on the opportunities they created for themselves.
Yeah, I mean, this is why UConn was an 8 seed this year. Mm-hmm. They couldn't capitalize. They couldn't make the game-winning plays. I mean, go back to February 15th, where UConn lost a game to Seton Hall. Now, Seton Hall may have been the worst team in the Power 5 this year. If you follow JVR bracketology, he does a thing where he eliminates teams throughout the year from at-large contention. He eliminated Seton Hall in early January. And then because Seton Hall was so bad in conference play, he eliminated them again just before that UConn game. Because they were that bad. And UConn has a loss to that Seton Hall team. I remember watching this game. Alex Caravan, he put up 20 points, which 20 points, you look at that on paper, that's a real solid performance. But in those game-winning situations, he was missing some open shots. I mean, McNeely only had 11 that game. He had 22, I believe, in our game. Liam McNeely went for
I think so.
22, where he missed some open shots down the stretch of that game. So it's a team that just hasn't been able to hit those critical shots. Now, we were the more talented team. That's probably why we won this game. But UConn has 9 players that were a top 100 recruit as well. So let's not act like that this UConn team just isn't talented and that Dan Hurley just had an unlucky year with coming off a bad class or everyone leading for the NBA after back-to-back years. He has talent on this team. So this is a good win for this team. And I think this is also going to be really big for going into that Sweet 16 matchup. If we had cruised past UConn after cruising past Norfolk State, and I mean, Colorado State's currently up by 4 in the first half against Maryland, so we don't know. But if we're really confident going into that game, like maybe overly confident, one of those teams, like a Maryland especially, could get off to a quick start, and it could be something that would be impossible for us to come back from.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think winning a game like this gives me a lot more confidence moving forward in the sense that, I think this team needed some adversity. I mean, look, they have been heralded as the favorite to win the whole thing. Everyone's been picking them in the last week since they won the SEC. I mean, obviously the Georgia game was a battle, but it was a weird kind of battle because Georgia dominated it for one half and then Florida dominated it for another half and just came up short. It wasn't a battle like this was. Florida hasn't played a game like this in a pretty long time. This was the first game that really put pressure on Florida to kind of have.
I mean, not UConn, UNC maybe.
Yeah, maybe even Missouri was a little bit different. Yeah, but win or lose, just the fact that you're in a battle like this and you have to respond with your back against the wall late.
Or even a game where neither team led by 10 points or more.
Yeah,
we haven't played many close games this year.
Yeah,
obviously the most double-digit point wins in the SEC. Our games have mostly been okay. We dominate this team for 30 minutes and we win by 20 points. Or it's been, this team gets off to a hot start and they're up 15, 20, 26 points on us, and we have to battle back, and in the final 5 minutes, we have a chance. Yeah. We haven't seen many games that from start to finish, either team could have won it the entire time.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think this was important. I mean,
Rob,
they won the game.
And the Gators suck. Like, they're top 16 team in the country. That's all I gotta say. They're a top 16 team in the country, and we gotta win. We dethroned the back-to-back national champions. To be the man, you gotta beat the man. I do know though, just because you killed Jesse James doesn't mean you are Jesse James. So we'll see what happens after on Thursday.
No, I mean, like, I was terrified for this game. I'll be honest. Like, this game really scared me. I did. Like, I mean, like, so I agree. Like, I think UConn's not great, but I think beating Dan Hurley, who I think is a brilliant coach, and a team that just has the psychology of having won back-to-back titles. Like, yeah, I think it's really huge for their confidence. I think it's a reminder that they're gettable. That if they don't play their best basketball, they can easily lose. They're not just going to cruise their way through this tournament. But I think having that adversity and overcoming it and staying alive does make me feel a lot more confident going into this Sweet 16 game against whoever wins this Maryland-Colorado State game.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anyone else we should really? I mean, Thomas Houck had a pretty good game. 7 points, 5 to 6 from free throw. He had a 140 offensive rating, which was second highest on the team. So that's a pretty good game from here. Micah only played 11 minutes. Which really shocks me because Ruben Chinyelu was in foul trouble for that entire second half.
Yeah.
So I'm shocked Panthon only played 11 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, they just went with a lot of guards in this game. Although we didn't really see much Urban Klavjar either. So
he only played 2 minutes.
I mean, the starters really just played the starters, and Houck really just kind of carried it here.
Yeah, Aberdeen only got 13. How many minutes does Aberdeen average? Like 20?
Yeah, I mean, definitely more than 13.
Which, I mean, can also be attested to that we dominate nearly every team we play. Or we've had injuries as well, so Aberdeen is one of the starters. So maybe in these true, close games, we're going to see less of Aberdeen and just, the 7 players that we really trust to go out there and beat these good teams. I mean, maybe not, though, because Aberdeen was really good against Auburn when we played them at Auburn, so.
Well, I think part of it, I mean, I just think what UConn did today I think Todd, for most of this game, got out-coached, honestly. I think Florida was really slow to adjust to a lot of the things UConn was throwing at them, and they finally did before it was too late. But, no, I mean, what I'm getting at is just that I think everything about the plan today kind of had to be adjusted on the fly, because when they came out of the gate, UConn's strategy, I mean, even though Florida was able to hold the lead for most of the half, the game was playing in a favorable way, playing out in a favorable way for UConn. It was playing out how UConn wanted this game to play out to stay in it. I mean, Florida only scored 31 points in the first half?
Yep.
Yeah. So, I think a lot of the plan from Todd here was thrown off in this game.
I predict by the end of the year that Mount Verde freshman class will have Montverde.
The Montverde, yeah.
Okay, we'll have one thing in common. They will have all lost to the Gators. Let's see who else is on that team. So there's Cooper Flagg. I mean, we just beat Liam McNeely.
Baylor player, right? One of the players on Baylor who just lost. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
And I think there might have been 2 players on that from UConn. Hold on, let me double check. Montverde.
There was 5. It was 5 dudes on that team that are in this tournament or something like that. I remember them showing the graphic.
Here we go. I got it. 2024 roster. Robert Wright, that's from Baylor. Is Curtis Givens? Does he play for Iowa State?
Curtis Givens. Does he play for? Doesn't he play for LSU?
Maybe. Oh yeah, he plays for LSU. I'm thinking of Curtis. I know Iowa State has a player named Curtis something. G, I think. Asa Newell. That's it.
Asa Newell.
That's
from Georgia.
And Derek Queen for Maryland. However, Maryland's currently down by 8 points early in that game. So, I mean, we'll get into that later. Do you have anything else you want to say on these 2 games?
Not really much on Norfolk State. I mean, you beat a 16 seed the way you want to
Yep.
beat. Maybe not quite the way you want to beat a 16 seed, but you
beat them
become
comfortably.
you didn't become Virginia or Purdue this year, and that's the ultimate goal. I mean, this game today was, I mean, first of all, probably the biggest emotional roller coaster I've been on watching a Florida sporting event in a pretty long time. I mean, obviously not thrilled with the way the team played for most of the game, but extremely thrilled that they found a way to win. And I mean, like you said, I mean, it really does kind of give me more confidence that this game played out the way it did than it would have if Florida just came out and was shooting 50% from three and won by 15. You know what I mean?
Yep. My final thoughts on this will be, we haven't made it past the second round since 2017. Yep. And that was done by Mike White with Billy Donovan's players, where you had Todd Golden come here in year 3 with all of his own players. Denzel Aberdeen was a year 1 guy, right? Yeah, Denzel Aberdeen and Will Richard are the 2 year 1 guys on the roster. So,
actually, wait, I thought Mike White recruited Denzel Aberdeen. Are you sure, Todd?
I think he did, but I'm pretty sure he was a freshman.
Oh, okay. Okay.
He was retained by Todd Golden.
Got it.
So I still think that counts for Todd Golden guy. So I'm really happy. It seems like Todd Golden, really good chance that he can stay here for a while as long as he doesn't leave. So I'm just happy to make it to that second weekend. And Colorado State's now up by 10 points. I mean, maybe we'll get a nice matchup against Colorado, a 12-seeded team in the Sweet 16, which could favor us to go to the Elite Eight. So I'm excited to see where that leads us.